Hey guys, this is Kevin. I just wanted to say hey. This will be my first drawing video. I was intending for this to be live, but YouTube has rules for uploading videos, and I have to wait 24 hours. So here we're going to do this. Pretty much, we're going to record it, and I'm going to be drawing. You can draw along with me. You can do something, listen, whatever you think is cool. Little introduction to who I am. My name is Kevin Sharp. I've done comics for about 20, 25, 26, maybe even 27 years. My first big break was on Showcase 94, number 12 from DC Comics, and it was with a character. It was a backup story. Well, it was actually an anthology series. So I guess I'm not sure it's necessarily a backup story, but it was a story featuring Triumph. And Triumph, if you're not a DC fan and or just not familiar with who that character is, they don't use him much. Basically, the character was sort of a man out of time. Hey, we've forgotten who this character is. He used to be a member of the Justice League, and everybody's forgotten him, and that kind of story. And then later, there was a little bit of that used with Sentry. Marvel did the same thing with Sentry, I think. If you go up and look up the character, I think they started it like that. And then I believe Triumph was later became a villain or a bad guy. And anyway, I worked on that. I got a gig on Vampirella, I think maybe the same year, in 94. Basically with Vampirella, I did 6 issues, 4, maybe 5, something like that. It's been a while. And I worked on those for Harris Publications, and I had a lot of fun on that. It was a fun book to draw. I didn't know what the heck I was doing necessarily. I had just broken in. I did a few indie books before then, but nothing major. There was a local company called trying to remember the name. There was London Night Studios and another company, but they published a book called Toxic Tommy. It was just a horror book. I mean, it sounds goofy. It might be goofy, but that was what I worked on. Then I did a self-published kind of thing through London Night with my buddy Tim, who the book was called Savage Blood, and it starred Razor. Then I kind of, after I did Vampirella, I moved on. Still trying to get to understand or trying to get my speed up to where, the deadlines can kind of catch up with you. So I moved on to let's see, what was my next work? Again, I was doing a lot of independent stuff. I think I did some stuff for Avatar at some point. Was not a fun situation. So I decided to move on. I got a few little gigs here and there from DC at that point. I think I did and the whistling you hear in the background is our cockatiel, or a cockatiel that we have here, named Oliver, and he's decided to chat up and be an internet star. But I bounced around a little bit, did here and there for a project. I did a annual from DC. Gosh, I'm trying to remember all the stuff I did. I had a few friends that I did covers for, so there's a few covers for a lot of indie books floating around that I did. I didn't really. I was circling the Marvel studio or uh, the Marvel Comics brand. I was trying to break in. Just no matter what happened, I was just constantly, coming up short a little bit. And then I got my big break thanks to Jason Liebig at Marvel and Tim Townsend. I got my big break at Marvel with Generation X. I did issue 63. I'm trying to remember. It's either 63 or 53. It's hard to remember. So you guys can track that down. But it was a part of a two-part story. I think Terry Dodson was the penciler at that time on the regular book, and I was a fill-in guy. And my issue had Juggernaut in it, which was a blast. Had a lot of fun with that. Man, I barely know what I was doing, but I just had so much fun on that. And Jason liked my stuff enough that he gave me a Generation X annual to also do some work on, do a backup story in. And so, I did Steel for DC. I did a Steel annual for DC. I did an All-Star 80-page giant for DC. That had actually DC's version of Thor, and then the setting was like back in the 50s or something, and maybe it was early or late 40s. It's towards the end of World War II, and featured FDR and Thor, DC's version of Thor. Trying to think. Yeah, so there was a lot of stuff, and then right around that time, I also had it was a whirlwind. I had Pin Up in Pit, the issue of Pit. I want to say it was issue 18, but I could be off on that. But I had a pin up in the issue of Pit. That was a lifelong dream for me because I was a big fan. I grew up on comics legit. I was constantly reading comics and stuff whenever I can get them. I think my first comic was either it's a haze, but when I was a kid, I'm going back. It was either a Herb Trimp issue of the Hulk, or it was the issue of Captain America with the issue of Captain America with Deathlock on the cover, and it has Cap in the sights of the laser gun he has, the laser scope, and you can see Cap's image in the scope. It's a real popular Mike Zeck cover. Huge fan of Mike Zeck. Loved everything that he did. Also a big fan of John Byrne. My first John Byrne comic, and it may have been my first. It was all around that time, so it's hard to remember exactly who put those in my hand. But my first issue was an issue of Fantastic Four. John Byrne was drawing it, and it was the Negative Zone. They were stuck in the Negative Zone, and I remember Reed had some kind of crazy helmet for whatever reason he needed to wear in the Negative Zone, and I can remember Thing throwing a big, huge chunk of metal, bouncing off a bunch of asteroids or something like that. They were floating on an asteroid, and there were other asteroids. And anyway, that's what I remember from it. So if you know the issue I'm talking about, you can probably place that that time period anyway. But there was a Jarella issue of the Hulk, maybe. Those not familiar with comics or the Hulk comics, Jarella was like, whereas Bruce Banner is always, his love interest is Betty Ross. The Hulk's was the first love interest was a character named Jarella on an alien world. and she dies later. But I can't remember. Right now, anyway, I'll go back to what I was saying. But as far as my work goes, I right around 2000, mid 2000, towards the tail end of the summer, I was asked by CrossGen if I wanted to do some covers, or a couple of covers, I think it was, for Sigil. They liked my work. They asked me if I wanted to move down. I did, because I was like, I'm single, what the heck? Why not try something new? Do something better for yourself. Was down at CrossGen for about 7, 8, maybe 9 months. I can't remember entirely. I know it was in late May, I think, that I left. For the most part, it was a fun experience. I drew Sigil for a little bit, for a few issues, giving Scott Eaton a break. Scott Eaton, I believe, was coming on to Sigil. Originally, it was the Lai brothers, Lai. I want to say Ray and Ben, maybe. And it had been a pretty crazy ride for me up to that point. They were getting removed, and then when I came down, they were leaving the book. Whatever happened. They left CrossGen. I was coming down, and I was doing 3 issues on there, and you can hear Oliver in the background. I'm sorry about that. I did a few issues of Sigil, and I was having fun. Honestly, I felt like that was kind of my jam. That was kind of what played to my strengths. But I was hired to be what they had assigned as a student penciler. I think at the time Steve McNiven, who was doing Meridian, was also labeled that. And so we basically were kind of being mentored and taught to be the next wave of CrossGen pencilers and stuff. I had fun. It was a little stressful. There were people there at CrossGen that it wasn't fun because they were playing politics with other people's lives, trying to get people fired. I won't go into it too much, but I wanted to give you guys just a general idea of kind of the stressfulness of some of the... Mostly everybody was great. There were lots of great... I'm fortunate to have spent my time there, even if I was a little bit angry about how everything shook out. It was a learning experience, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the camaraderie they had there, especially with my buddies like Don Hillsman. So many people. I like talking to Jimmy Chung. Jimmy was a hard worker and kind of kept to himself a lot, but I liked the person. There were so many great people that I enjoyed being around. I like hearing John Dell speak. He would be over there working and inking, and he was a funny guy. He had a good sense of humor. Just an incredible inker, and being able to see pages from like Brandon Peterson and John Dell working together, and just, oh man, they were just so pretty, and they were fun to see. You could see the artwork being made. It's a fun thing about YouTube too. You get to, if an artist wants to crank out a live stream and show you how they're doing things, you get to go along with that, go along with the ride. The CrossGen was fun. There were a lot of people behind the scenes, good people, just wonderful people. I had a lot of fun. A lot of people I really enjoyed talking to. I was there. When Steve Epting came in. Yeah, Steve was in a cubicle near me, and on the other side of me, and oh man, there were so many good talents you get to see. and I really enjoyed it. It was special. Um, Alas, just like anything else, sometimes things end and you go on and move on. So that's what happened. There was some drama, and it was starting to affect me and my work. It got to the point where I was drinking and things, and just wasn't happy about it. I wasn't happy about the way things were shaking out. Some of the politics really pissed me off, and so me and the owner, Mark Alessi, God rest him, we didn't get along. We didn't see eye to eye about certain things. So I was fired, left, whatever you want to say. They didn't want me to say I was fired, or they didn't want me to say I was let go, but I was let go. Luckily, through just how everything ended and people felt bad that I was leaving, a buddy of mine, Don Hilsman, had some contacts at Marvel, and he asked one of his contacts, it's like, hey, will you take a look at Kev's stuff? Kev's leaving leaving CrossGen. What do you think about this? And so he saw some of my artwork and calls me up, and how would you like to draw a 4-issue X-Men miniseries? And you got to understand, I was dejected. I was depressed. I didn't know where my next move would be. I was going to be broke for a good significant amount of time before I started, getting back into the talent pool at either DC or Marvel, or at least as far as it was just, there wasn't going to be a lot of money flowing in, and so that was a huge deal for me. I felt almost reborn. It was such a good feeling to know that somebody put enough stocking into my stuff that they didn't just hand me, a little miniseries with a single character. They handed me an X-Men miniseries. And, also being humble, I know that there were a lot of X-Men miniseries out then. But for me, it was mind-blowing. And so I did a 4-issue X-Men miniseries called Extreme X-Men: The Savage Land. I did that. I was fine. It was a crazy roller coaster because I got one day when the miniseries came out, there were criticisms about my penciling because some of the story wasn't making sense, and a lot of people thought that I was messing up Chris Claremont's script, and it was it was so stressful because behind the scenes, actually, I was getting notes from editors and revisions to scripts and stuff, and they mentioned to me, hey, well, there's in some of Chris's stuff, hey Kev, feel free if you need to change some things or do this, it's okay, just call us, or just let us know and just go crazy. And I imagine being a lifelong X-Men fan and being told that maybe because of the way the script, things going on behind the scenes you just had nothing to do with, that it was okay, go ahead and encourage you to kind of take some liberties if something that makes sense. I won't say they weren't saying like, hey, change Chris's script whole cloth, but they were encouraging me to step up and try to be more aggressive about my penciling and to do things to get crazy, and I'm a lifelong X-Men fan. And so I was just like, you don't change a Chris Claremont script, you just don't do that, you don't touch it. And so that's where I was with it. And so I was getting a lot of the blame for it in a lot of reviews for story things and stuff that had nothing to do with me. And it was disappointing. It was fun, but it was disappointing. And because you want to just give everything your best, and none of it was as successful as you would like it to be. I mean, if you go back and look, if you go look at those issues, I had liquid on colors on the covers, and it was a huge thing. I was a huge Joe Madureira fan. I was a fan of what was going on with the X books up to that point with like Carlos Pacheco and let me see, Brandon Peterson. There was Joe Mad, Tim Townsend Inks. I had met Tim Townsend through a friend of mine, and I was a huge fan of Tim's, and was just, the things that people brought to the table in those days. We were having so much fun. It was fun to be a fan and see all this stuff come out, and it was a dream come true. Really was. And then to see the reviews just kind of tear you down, and the hardcore X-Men fans kind of, message boards and things like that just tear you down, because it was a blow. But you get used to it. That was something that you had to learn. Was that it was something, it was a hard lesson to learn. That all people see is what hits the page. They don't get to see some of this other stupid stuff that goes on in the background, and you learn that, and you try not to be so attached to what you lay down. You want to be the best artist you can be, but know that eventually you're going to take your lumps in as far as criticisms and stuff. It happens. So I think that learning that helps you build up a thick skin. So I had struggled a little bit after then with getting Marvel work, so I had hit up DC again, and luckily around that time, I could jump around, and so after all that, I'd gotten a little bit of capital as far as getting some kind of name recognition, so I got G.I. Joe from IDW after that, and I did a few issues of that. I think it was 4 or 5 issues, and I was supposed to be the main guy on there, but there were some issues behind the scenes. Again, nothing I was particularly happy with. We had a inker that I wasn't a huge fan of. At least, don't get me wrong, no insult to the inker that was on it. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. I'm sure he was fine and the right people, but it just didn't fit my style of work. And actually, Devil's Due had put out a poster of a piece. I just, for the hell of it, one weekend was working on G.I. Joe double page spread of just a bunch of the different characters. And some of my favorites, like Mercer, who was in the G.I. Joe movie and the animated movie. And he was the ex-Cobra who became a G.I. Joe. He's part of Sergeant Slaughter's little group. And he was just, the idea of an ex-Cobra joining G.I. Joe was just really cool to me. And so there was Snake Eyes, the whole team on there. It's really cool. And then on the other side was villains, and it was really cool. And then Devil's Due got Tim Townsend to ink it. So again, I had something really cool happen, and also, going back, I skipped over a little bit, but there was the mid to late 90s. A buddy of mine was publishing, and he got the Diamond New Publisher of the Year award from Diamond, and he was doing a black and white book called Book. And my buddy Ben, he had high caliber talent on his books. Had Mike Wieringo doing covers, Brandon Peterson, Jason Pearson, a whole bunch of people doing just high caliber covers and high quality. And I was I was lucky to be a part of that. I was drawing a book for him. The name of the book was called Book. But anyway, I wanted to give a shout out because I kind of glanced over that, and I didn't mean to. But back to the 2000s, I was doing GI Joe. I had a little bit of falling out with them just because we disagreed on a couple of major things. And so after I did that, I went on to, I hit up DC, and I started doing a fill-in issue here and a fill-in issue there of Legion of Superheroes. And I had, I believe, Mark Waid writing that at the time. And I think it was during Barry Kitson's run. And then I also, around that time, got the Katana Shazam one-shot. And that had Batman and just basically it was a one-shot with the characters. I think they were getting ready to relaunch Outsiders, maybe. And anyway, it had Shazam in his new role as the Wizard of the Rock of Eternity or whatever. And, you know, he wore all white, which it wasn't fun because I was a huge Shazam fan. And I was just like, why is he wearing this? And and I just was completely lost on that particular story because I wanted to draw full out, you know, straight out Shazam, you know, or Captain Marvel. And that's pretty much it. That's what I was doing around that time. And then later, back to Marvel again. Well, actually, around that time, I also had gotten from Dynamite. Dynamite Entertainment had the license to Army of Darkness, and they hit me up, asking me if I wanted to draw the book. And so I was like, hell yeah, because I'm a huge Army of Darkness fan. I really like Bruce Campbell. I don't like him as, or you know, as not as fanatical as some of the other people out there that love Bruce Campbell. But I think the dude's hilarious, and I like his wit. And so, just happy to draw that. And roughly I got about 5 issues into it. The deadlines were getting a little tough on it. But I was having fun with the book. I really enjoyed it. And then Dynamite gave me a couple of the little small projects to do. I moved on. Trying to think what are the other projects I did around that time. There's that. I think I went back to Wildstorm. Or I went to Wildstorm. I was on Wildstorm's radar. I think around this time, it was like 2006, 2007. I was on Wildstorm's radar. I was talking to editors, and we're going back and forth. And they had a few tryout things for me to do. And I ended up getting Resident Evil, and it was a nightmare. No diss to anybody at Wildstorm. I mean, they were doing the best they could, but they were dealing with Capcom, and Capcom was, I'll have to be careful about what I say here. But anyway, Capcom was a little difficult to deal with in terms of the deadlines because they were changing things at the last minute. 1 minute, we were allowed to use Chris, and because this was right around the time when Resident Evil 5 was coming out, and we were allowed to use Chris and Jill, and then all of a sudden we weren't allowed to. The editors would give us notes, so we had to take the whole issue, or a good chunk of the issue that I had drawn, and completely redraw it because the script had to be changed so that it didn't feature. They were all new characters that we created, and then we had to rewrite it. It had to be rewritten in places, or at least things in the script were changed to accommodate these characters, and so nothing seemed to make sense, and it was really baffling. It was like, hey, you've got the game coming out in a few months. Why in the hell wouldn't you let the characters be in the game or be in the comic? I mean, trying to promote and do what you can to promote it. So, but Capcom was changing this stuff on the fly. They didn't like the way a gun was drawn. You had to go change this, and it was really tough. It didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. Finally, we were up against the wall, and I think we had a weekend to redraw. It was going to print really soon, I think like the following week. So they asked me to draw for that weekend, like as many pages as I could, and I was down like 7 or 8 pages. So for that weekend, I did. My fiance was actually witness for this. I did 7 pages. I don't even know how I did it that week, and I couldn't tell you how I was able to draw 7 pages. And I hated the look of every single one because I had to blow through them. I mean, it was just disappointing. And so that happened. So I walked. I didn't want to have to, but what happened was the editors came in and said, "Hey Kev, we've got to get issue 2 rolling. Can you do that again? Can you get us 7 or 8 more pages by it?" And I was just like, dude, I was lucky to make it through the weekend. I was mentally, physically, I was starting to get sick from, I don't know, maybe from staying up all. I was hitting energy drinks and things like that, I think, or at least 5-hour energies. And I was just like, nope, I can't put myself through it. So I had to walk, and it was disappointing because as far as my own personal thought of things, I didn't like doing that. It wasn't something that I thought was kosher, but it was something where I just couldn't do it, and they needed it, and there was just no way I could deliver that. I needed at least a week off to get my head straight. And as an artist, it's hard to pull this stuff out of your brain and have it work, and just to keep chugging and keep drawing, especially when you don't think you're doing your best work. And I apologize again for the birds talking in the background, if you hear it. But anyway, I just, I had to walk, and it was something I don't encourage people to do. This was extreme circumstances where I had to make a decision, where I didn't like what I was being asked to do, to try to draw that much. I didn't feel I could do it. I mean, I don't even know where I got the energy and the focus, the concentration, the ability to do that many pages. It still blows my mind that I was able to do that much. And I know there's some people out there, some of the pros a little older, are probably going, "Oh, kid, that's nothing, blah, blah, blah." And I'd probably agree with you, but for me at that time, I had never been asked to do that amount of work in that amount of time, and it wasn't something that I was accustomed to. But anyway, after I did that, I kind of looked around for some work, and luckily I got one of the best gigs I could ever ask for, as far as dealing with people who dealt with artists and could work around artists' strengths and weaknesses and stuff. And that was with my 3-issue stint on Nova. I did one issue. The first issue, I issued 25, I think it was. And that was for Bill Roseman, the editor at Marvel. And Bill was an awesome editor, and I think he's at Marvel Animation or at Marvel Games right now, or the Marvel Games division. But Bill was awesome, and I had a lot of fun. He gave me assignments that were fun. The deadlines weren't beat you up kind of, they were fill-ins, but they weren't beat you over the head, and you'd have to lose sleep and put a little, or take a few years off your life trying to do the deadlines. And it was really fun. Bill's one of my favorite people to work with. Had a lot of fun on Nova, just fun stories. DNA, the writers, that's what they call themselves, are Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. If I'm getting it wrong, I apologize. But they were great. The scripts were great. You can't ask for more fun because they didn't ask you to do too much. They wanted to let you breathe and let you put out your best work. And I had a lot of fun on Nova. I felt like I was starting to ramp up my ability and my penciling on that run. And it makes such a difference when you're happy with the people you're working for and they're not asking crazy stuff from you. And so then later, after I did that stuff, Bill became an editor over in the Creative Services division, and that's how I got started doing stuff for Marvel Creative Services. And if you don't know, Creative Services is Marvel's branch where they handle custom comics or custom it's creative custom solutions, which means that they do kind of a lot of advertising type art and things like that. They also do custom comics, and so I did a lot of work doing different things for that through Bill, and that's been a blast. That was a blast for a long time. Then Bill moved on to the animation division at some point. I lost some contacts, but I kept going. I got a few things here and there. I had a 6-issue run on Legion of Superheroes after that, and that was fun. I also did Illegitimates for Taron Killam, formerly of Saturday Night Live. It's on ABC now. And it was a 6-issue miniseries, and basically it was a spy tale with a group of characters playing off. It was a riff off the idea that James Bond, in all the James Bond movies, slept around, and so what would happen if the ladies had given birth to James Bond or a super spy like James Bond, give birth to their kids, and each of the kids had some kind of cool special ability or talent, and the kids were recruited for some kind of mission, and that was fun. Did a lot of that, and then later went back to Creative Services. I got offers to do more Creative Services work, and so that's where we're at now. So I've been doing a lot of Marvel Creative Services stuff, and that's who I am. I'm sure there were some books and things like that were around that time that I forgot, and I apologize to the publishers. I apologize to the creative teams that I work with if I didn't mention you. But we're just having fun. This is a lazy Sunday stream. I'm drawing. I hope you guys dig it. We're just here to have fun while I'm doing a commission, X-Men commission. I'll let you guys see it. Just a glimpse at the pencils. And I'm also doing a X-Men stream, or I am doing an X-Men stream, but this is a villains part. This was actually going to be a 4-piece X-Men spread that I'm doing. And here we have Juggernaut, Sabretooth in the classic Jim Lee outfit. There's Apocalypse. There's a Sentinel, Magneto, and Mr. Sinister when I get around to wrapping him up. So that's what I'm on. That's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day. But if you checked it out, I want to thank you. We're going to be doing more when I can. It won't be an everyday thing. If you don't see me on a live stream for my own, you'll catch me there maybe with Mike S. Miller on his Blacklist Universe stream. He has multiple streams there. Sometimes I do Drawn and Quartered and Friday Night Auctions. And hope you guys dig it. I love comic art, and hopefully I'll be going live and I'll be taking your questions. any cool questions you have, and just sharing art. Fun stuff. All right. You guys have a good evening. Enjoy your Sunday.